So, it's 2024, you're still playing Battlefield 1, because frankly it's the best thing on offer when it comes to the Battlefield franchise, and you have some questions on how to make the most out of each gun that you're using. This is something I get asked while I'm streaming all the time. How do I use an LMG? What's the best medic rifle for this map? How do I use a shotgun effectively? But the one thing that I get asked the most often is how do you play as an aggressive sniper? Now, if you, just like me, like to get really close, still play for your team, play the objective, but still maintain that ability to click people's heads from quite a distance away, this is the video for you. My name's Dame, this is DameOver, and here is how to aggressively snipe in 2024. Now, this background footage is just completely random footage that I've ripped straight from my streams, so you'll see a variety of weapons on show. Personally, I much prefer the infantry variants of the sniper rifles rather than those with scopes. I am playing on console, so aim assist does come into that a little bit. On the infantry rifles, you do get aim assist. Anything with the scope, you don't. But there's a nice middle ground with a couple of the sniper rifles in the scout class, in particular the SMLE carbine, which has this little red dot kind of sight on it. This one still gets aim assist, but you get that little extra zoom, so it's a little bit easier to shoot people from a distance. Now, I've been playing Battlefield 1 since the very beginning, since it launched, and I started to look at aggressive sniping really early on, mostly because of the pistols being as powerful as they are. Being able to shoot with your sniper and quickly swapping to your sidearm to finish them off is a really powerful tool, and in Battlefield 1 can be extremely useful. But not only that, the one-shot sweet spot mechanic, which I hadn't experienced in any other game, was something that really intrigued me, especially those weapons that you needed to be up close for. Now, I was originally going to do some comparisons with the snipers that are better from further away and the ones that had the closer one-shot sweet spots that you should be using as an aggressive sniper, but not all of the aggressive sniper weapons actually have that one-shot sweet spot, just a little disclaimer. But comparing those weapons would take absolutely ages, so I'm just going to talk through the ones that you should be using. So let's talk about two of my favorite aggressive snipers to use. That is the SMLE and the Ross Mark III. Now, like I said, the infantry and carbine variants are definitely preferable when you're playing as an aggressive sniper. That's one of my top tips for you. But if you did want to use the marksman variants or anything with a scope and you prefer that, then totally that is up to you. A lot of the gameplay in Battlefield 1 and any Battlefield game is dictated by personal preference. So if it works better for you, go for it. These snipers both have exactly the same sweet spot range. So the 100% damage kicks in when this is with a shot to the chest without hitting a limb, starts at 40 meters and goes all the way to 75. This means that you're able to sit just far enough back from people to not be able to get mowed down by an SMG very quickly, for instance. Medics have to adjust their aim and maybe not fire at the full fire rate, and the same with LMGs. You're just far enough away that you're able to give them a slight disadvantage as long as you hit your shots. If you miss, chances are you're going to die, but that is the trade-off that we take if we are playing as an aggressive sniper. Now, I'd also like to compare fire rates for these guns as well, because it does play into a lot of what you're able to do. Now, generally, the fire rate for the aggressive snipers that I'm going to list are a little bit faster than some of the ones that you have to be sat further back for, and some of those guns where you have a one-shot sweet spot that starts further away. And I think it's a decent amount of balancing that the guys at DICE, when they made the game, have actually done. So the Ross has a fire rate of 62 rounds per minute. The SMLE has a fire rate of 52 rounds per minute. The trade-off between the two for balance is that the Ross only has 5 rounds before a full reload, whereas the SMLE has 10. Now, even though the Ross only has 5 rounds per reload, the reload time is actually very quick. So as long as you're able to duck and cover, you should be fine in any firefight. But the thing is, with the SMLE having 10, it allows you to keep that sustained pressure and keep taking shots even if you are missing. You have a little bit more room for error when it comes to using the SMLE. Now, two of the other guns that I'd recommend before we get on to our top tips are the Lebel Model 1886 and the Type 38 Arasaka. Now, the Lebel might be a little bit controversial as its one-shot sweet spot starts a little bit further away than you might consider being an aggressive sniper, but the amount of damage that it can do leading up to that one-shot sweet spot is enough that you'll end up picking up a lot of kills from people that have already been injured, or you'll get some assist counts as kills. So, the Lebel starts its one-shot sweet spot at 50 meters and it finishes at 87. This means on maps like Monte Grappa or on Rupture, you can take those nice long sight lines and try to pick people off before you move forward to really play aggressively. It gives you a good balance between being able to be up in people's faces and support your team as one of the squad, or just sit a little bit further back and pick people off. Now, the Arasaka has one of the shortest sweet spots in the entire game, which starts at 30 meters and finishes at 62. Now, this is one of the ultimate aggressive sniper weapons because it's actually pretty difficult to use. And it also has a decent trade-off with the fire rate as well, because it can do so much damage from so close. It's got 57 rounds per minute compared to the Lebel, which has 50 56. So those will be my top 4 choices in terms of what weapons to use when you are playing as an aggressive sniper. So how do you use them? What do you actually do in terms of taking your shots? Now, number 1 is always spotting. I am always mashing the spot button whenever I'm playing. I'm literally like this the entire time. I don't know if you can hear the clicking. I'm like this the entire time, absolutely mashing the button in case I see someone on the horizon, behind a rock, behind a piece of cover, or just running through a building. Whatever happens, you spot them. Now, the way to get your aim in right on Battlefield 1 is to spot them and aim just below that red dot. Now, if you get good at this and you practice well with the sniper rifle, chances are you're going to hit the upper chest or a headshot almost every single time. But one thing about the infantry rifles and the carbine rifles in the scout class that give you a really big advantage is you don't have to actually take your finger off of the aim down sight button to chamber in the next round. But you can stay aimed down sight with your sniper rifle if you so wish to carry on aiming at exactly the same spot without having to reacquire the target. Now, this is a huge advantage when you're playing as an aggressive sniper, especially if you know you're not within the one-shot sweet spot. You can put the rifle to your shoulder, take a shot, quickly duck out of the way to chamber in the next round if you want, and pop back up. Or, if you know that target is far enough away that they won't be able to fire back at you very easily, stay aimed down sight. Take the first shot and hit the follow-up. If they're running away from you, there's no need to come out of that aim. Stay aimed down sight, take both of the shots. This is going to lead to you getting so many more kills that you would have otherwise missed out on just because you've taken your eye off the sight. So, test it out with your favorite sniper rifles. Like I say, it doesn't happen to all of them, but for these 4 choices that I've gone through, it's absolutely the way to play. So, we've talked about spotting, we've talked about aiming. Now, using your gadgets is super important when it comes to playing as an aggressive sniper because you need to be aware of what's happening around you all the time. So, using your flares correctly is a really big deal. Firing your flares about 60, 70, 80 meters in front of you to land where you're going to end up or the area that you're going to end up aiming into is extremely important. If you aren't good with your flares, practice. The flare will light up the area around where it lands, so practice landing it where you need to go. If you're aiming straight up with your flare, you're doing it wrong. If there's a building in a particular site that you can hit with the flare, go for it. Use the side of the building to catch the flare, to land on the floor, and give you and your team all the information that you need. So like I mentioned before, one of the issues with aggressive sniping is hitting your shots, and the only way you're going to do that is by knowing where your target is. Now, using your flares correctly and being aware of your surroundings and keeping an eye on that mini-map for those little red dots, as well as remembering to spot all the time, is going to be the key to success. Sometimes you might see clips from players that turn to see an enemy where you didn't expect them to be and they happen to know where they are. Chances are it's just because they were paying attention to the minimap. Being the one that gets the shot off first as an aggro sniper is an absolute must. Giving yourself enough time to take that initial shot to do most of the damage, and then if you have to, swap to your sidearm in close quarters, is the way you're going to keep yourself in the fight. I know I haven't numbered these tips, but I think this is probably the 4th thing I'm going to say. Make sure your settings are right for you. If you haven't got a high enough sensitivity, being able to turn on your enemies is just not going to be possible. So make sure you've checked out your settings, and as you're playing, adjust things a little bit. If you feel like you need to have less vertical sensitivity than you do horizontal, go for it. That's exactly what I've got. Generally, you need to turn on your X-axis much quicker than you do on your Y-axis, but again, that is totally personal preference, and I would recommend you playing around and trying a few things out until you can find that exact sweet spot. Now, another gameplay tip is to just go for the shots. Absolutely just go for the shots. The worst thing that's going to happen is that you'll miss and you'll just get better at it. Unless you actually try those difficult shots that you can amazingly pull off with a bit of practice, you're never actually going to get any better. So if you see someone up close and you want to just quickly aim down sight and shoot in a split second as though you're trying to quick scope, just go for it. The same thing with drag scoping if you're deciding to use one of the marksman rifles or one of the snipers that has a scope on it, just go for it. It's a very, very difficult skill and it varies depending on the bullet velocity of each of the sniper rifles, so you need to practice to work out how exactly that works and get it into your muscle memory. I'd also recommend that you pay attention to the one-shot sweet spot range. Once you start to get that 100% damage on some players, try and clock exactly how far away you are. If you find a range that works, try and stick in that area for a little bit so you can take advantage of that one-shot sweet spot. And if you need a bit of a visual clue, maybe fire a spare flare down there so that you can use that as a visual marker. If you're smart with the flare, and fire it right near where that one-shot sweet spot is, as the enemies are running just past it, you know they're within the kill range. And the last big tip that I have for you guys when you're playing as an aggro sniper is to just move. Move as much as possible. Don't stay still. That's how you're going to get picked off. Make yourself as slippery as possible. Every time you take a shot, duck back down, chamber in the next round, and then move to a slightly different area. If you keep just bobbing up and down, someone is going to take advantage of it. They're going to notice you, they're going to spot you, and they're going to shoot you in the face. So stay as mobile as possible. Being difficult to hit is just as important a skill as being able to hit your enemies. So make sure you're practicing it. I've got a couple of extra tips that you might want to take into your gameplay in general on the previous video, which I'll leave at the end of this one in the end card. So make sure you go and check that one out. And as a bonus, don't be afraid to just run in sidearm only. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, sidearms are incredibly powerful. So you can rely on them in a one-on-one gunfight as long as it's at the right range. If you know you're not going to hit your shots at 10, 12, 15 meters, just go for it with your pistol, your revolver, or the Mars automatic. Battlefield 1's an extremely well-balanced game when it comes to the weapons, so see what you can come up with. So let me know which weapons you go to when you're playing as an aggro sniper down in the comments. It would be great. If you think there are any other tips that would be really, really useful, make sure you put those down in the comments as well so other people can read them. I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button, and if you're new, hit the sub as well, and catch me on stream 5 times a week. All of the details are going to be down in the description. All right, I'll catch you next time. It's DameOver. Peace.